What would you do if your perfect, luxurious vacation was shattered by a stranger who tried to have your family kicked out of a luxury resort? When Marcus Reynolds and his family checked into the Ocean View Resort's exclusive VIP section, they expected peace and relaxation. But one entitled guest, Karen Whitmore, couldn't fathom sharing her paradise with a black family. The moment she saw them by the VIP pool, her prejudice went into overdrive. Karen's determination to ruin their day hit a brick wall when the CEO of the resort arrived. Her smugness turned to shock as she realized the family she had tried to exclude now owned the paradise she cherished so much. Would you handle it with the same composure as the Reynolds family? Or would you demand justice? Watch to see how power and privilege collide in the most unexpected way. The Ocean View Resort in Miami was known for its pristine beaches, 5-star service, and exclusive clientele. White marble floors gleamed under crystal chandeliers, and staff in crisp uniforms moved efficiently through the lobby. This was a place where wealthy people came to unwind and enjoy their time off. Karen Whitmore had been taking her vacations here for the last 5 years. Karen adjusted her designer sunglasses as she walked across the lobby, her blue linen dress flowing behind her. She was used to getting what she wanted. As a successful real estate broker from Connecticut, she expected a certain level of service and a certain type of guest. The resort had always delivered. "Good morning, Miss Whitmore," the concierge called out with a practiced smile. "Enjoying your stay?" Karen nodded briefly. "The usual cabana by the VIP pool, Thomas. And make sure they know I want extra towels this time." She didn't wait for his response, already heading toward the elevator. The VIP pool area was her favorite spot, exclusive, quiet, and carefully curated. Only guests staying in the premium suites had access, which kept the area free from what Karen called the regular crowd. As the elevator doors opened to the rooftop, Karen inhaled deeply. The scent of salt water mixed with sunscreen filled the air. Palm trees swayed gently in the breeze. This was her sanctuary. But something was different today. Karen's steps faltered as she approached her usual cabana. A family was setting up at the cabana next to hers. A black family. The father and mother were arranging towels while a teenage girl set up a portable speaker. Karen's lips pressed together. She had never seen them before, and she knew most of the VIP guests by sight. They didn't look like they belonged here. Not in her exclusive section. The man wore simple swim trunks, not designer brands. The woman's beach bag wasn't from any luxury collection Karen recognized. The VIP pool wasn't supposed to be like this. Marcus Reynolds helped his wife Isha organize their beach bags. Their daughter Jada scrolled through her phone, picking the perfect playlist for their first day at the resort. This vacation was special. A celebration of Marcus's promotion at his architectural firm. After years of hard work, he had finally made partner. The Ocean View Resort was expensive, but they had splurged on the premium package, wanting to give their kids the best experience possible. "This place is amazing," Isha said, looking out at the infinity pool that seemed to merge with the ocean beyond. "Worth every penny." Marcus nodded, though he couldn't help noticing the woman in the next cabana. She had been staring at them since they arrived, her expression pinched with disapproval. He'd seen that look before, the one that questioned whether he belonged. "Aisha, keep an eye on Jada while I get drinks," Marcus said, standing up. "What does everyone want?" As Marcus walked toward the bar, he felt the woman's eyes following him. He straightened his shoulders, reminding himself that he had every right to be here. He had worked hard for this vacation, paid the same premium prices as everyone else. At the bar, he ordered virgin piña coladas for Jada and mojitos for himself and Aisha. The bartender was friendly, chatting as he prepared the drinks. "First time at Ocean View?" the bartender asked. "Yes," Marcus replied. "It's even more beautiful than the pictures." "Well, enjoy your stay, sir. Let me know if you need anything else." Marcus carried the drinks back to their cabana, noticing that the woman was now on her phone, speaking in hushed but clearly agitated tones. He tried to ignore her, focusing instead on his family's excitement. "Drinks are served," he announced, setting the tray down. Jada snapped a photo for her Instagram. Isha smiled up at Marcus, squeezing his hand. "This is perfect," she said. "Just what we needed." Marcus nodded, but he couldn't shake the feeling that their perfect vacation was about to be disrupted. Karen watched the Black family from behind her sunglasses, her irritation growing by the minute. The teenager's music, while not loud, was still audible from her cabana. They didn't fit the profile of the usual VIP guests. They didn't belong here. She had already called the front desk once, asking if there had been some mistake with the pool access. The receptionist had assured her that all guests in the VIP section had proper authorization. Karen wasn't satisfied. When she saw a security guard making his rounds, she waved him over. "Excuse me," she said, her voice deliberately low. "I think there might be a situation that needs your attention." The guard, a young man named Miguel, approached with a professional smile. "How can I help you, ma'am?" Karen tilted her head toward the Reynolds family. "Those people over there, I don't think they're supposed to be in this area. This is the VIP section." Miguel glanced at the family, then back at Karen. "All guests in this area have been verified at the entrance, ma'am." Karen's lips tightened. "Well, I think you should check again. I've been coming here for years, and I know who belongs and who doesn't." Miguel hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. "Ma'am, I can't just approach guests without—" "I'm not asking you to make a scene," Karen interrupted, her voice sharp. "I'm asking you to do your job. What if they snuck in? What if they're not even staying at the resort?" Miguel shifted his weight, caught between protocol and a persistent guest. "I'll speak with my supervisor," he finally said. Karen watched as Miguel spoke into his radio, then waited. A few minutes later, a more senior security officer approached, along with Thomas, the concierge from the lobby. "Ms. Whitmore," Thomas said, his smile strained. "Miguel says you have a concern?" Karen stood up, smoothing her dress. "Yes, I do. I believe those people," she gestured toward the Reynolds family, "have somehow gained access to the VIP area without proper authorization." Thomas glanced at the family, who were now watching the conversation with concern. "I want to see their room keys," Karen insisted. "If they're legitimate guests with VIP access, they should have no problem proving it." The senior security officer, a man named Rodriguez, sighed. "Ma'am, we don't typically ask guests to verify their status once they're already in the area." "Well, maybe you should start," Karen said, crossing her arms. "Otherwise, what's the point of having an exclusive section?" Rodriguez and Thomas exchanged looks. Then, reluctantly, they approached the Reynolds family. Marcus saw the resort staff approaching with the woman from the next cabana trailing behind them. His stomach tightened. He'd seen this movie before. "Good afternoon," the concierge said, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "I hope you're enjoying your day." "I'm Thomas, the concierge, and this is Officer Rodriguez from security. I apologize for the interruption, but we need to verify that you have access to this area." Marcus's jaw tightened. "We checked in yesterday. Premium Suite 1542. We were given access cards at the front desk." Jada, sensing trouble, pulled out her phone and suddenly began recording. "Dad, what's going on?" Jada asked, holding her phone. "Nothing, sweetie," Marcus assured her, though his voice had an edge to it. "Just a misunderstanding." Karen stepped forward, unable to contain herself. "This is the VIP section," she said, her voice carrying across the pool area. "It's reserved for premium guests only." Marcus turned to her, his expression controlled, but his eyes flashing with anger. "We are premium guests. We paid for this access." "Could we see your room keys, please?" Rodriguez asked, looking uncomfortable with the whole situation. Aisha reached into their beach bag and pulled out 4 key cards with the VIP logo clearly visible. "Here they are." "Is there a problem?" Rodriguez examined the cards and handed them back. "These appear to be in order." Karen wasn't satisfied. "Those could be from anywhere. Have you checked the system? Maybe they found those cards or borrowed them from someone else." Several other guests were now watching the scene unfold. Some looked embarrassed, others curious. A few were shaking their heads in disapproval, though it wasn't clear who they were disapproving of. "Ma'am," Rodriguez said to Karen, "the cards are valid." "Then check the system," Karen insisted. Call the front desk. Verify that they're actually staying in a premium suite. Thomas hesitated, then nodded to Rodriguez, who stepped aside to make a call. Jada, still recording, moved closer to her father. "This is messed up," she whispered. Marcus put his arm around her shoulders. "It's okay, Jada. We have every right to be here." Karen stood with her arms crossed, a smug expression on her face as she waited for the verification. She was certain she was right. People like them didn't stay in premium suites at Ocean View. Rodriguez returned, his expression unreadable. "Sir, ma'am," he addressed the Reynolds family, "would you mind coming with me to the front desk to double-check your reservation? It's just a formality." "Are you serious?" Aisha asked, her voice rising. "We're being asked to leave the pool to prove we belong here?" "It's just a quick verification," Thomas said, not meeting their eyes. Marcus looked around at the watching guests, at his daughter recording everything, and at his wife's angry expression. Then he looked at Karen, who was watching with barely concealed satisfaction. "No," Marcus said firmly. "We will not be leaving to verify anything. We checked in properly, we paid for access to this area, and we have our key cards. If you need to verify something, you can do it right here." The standoff at the pool had drawn a small crowd. Other guests pretended to mind their own business, but their attention was clearly on the unfolding drama. Karen stood her ground, convinced she was in the right. "This is ridiculous," she said loudly. "If they have nothing to hide, they should have no problem verifying their reservation." Marcus turned to face her directly. "Ma'am, with all due respect, this isn't about our reservation. This is about you deciding we don't belong here based on how we look." Karen's face flushed. "That's absurd. This has nothing to do with... I'm simply concerned about maintaining the standards of the VIP area." "The standards?" Aisha repeated, stepping forward. "And what standards are those exactly?" Thomas, the concierge, tried to ease the tension. "Maybe we can sort this out amicably." "I want to speak to the manager," Karen interrupted. "The general manager. Now." Rodriguez sighed and spoke into his radio. A few minutes later, a man in a tailored suit approached. His name tag read, "Richard Keller, General Manager." "What seems to be the problem?" Richard asked, his expression professionally neutral. Karen stepped forward immediately. "These people are in the VIP area, and I have concerns about whether they're authorized to be here. I've asked security to verify their reservation, but they're refusing to cooperate." Richard turned to the Reynolds family. "I apologize for the inconvenience. Could I see your room keys, please?" Marcus handed them over, his patience wearing thin. "We've already shown them once. We're staying in Suite 1542. Richard examined the keys and nodded. "These are indeed valid VIP access cards." "But have you checked the system?" Karen pressed. "Anyone could have those cards. They could have snuck in, or don't you think it's possible?" "Miss Whitmore," Richard interrupted. "I understand your concern, but they have valid access cards." "No, you clearly don't understand," Karen said, her voice rising. "I've been coming to this resort for years. I expect a certain level of exclusivity. If you're not going to maintain standards, then what am I paying premium prices for?" Jada continued recording, capturing every word. Other guests were now openly watching, some with disapproval clear on their faces. Richard turned to Rodriguez. "Please verify the reservation in the system." Rodriguez stepped away again, speaking quietly into his radio. The tension around the pool was palpable. "This is unacceptable," Marcus said, his voice controlled but firm. "We are paying guests being harassed because this woman has decided we don't belong here." "No one is harassing you, sir," Richard replied. "We're simply following protocol." "Protocol?" Aisha laughed bitterly. "Is it protocol to question guests who are already in the VIP area, or is this special protocol just for us?" Rodriguez returned, looking uncomfortable. "Sir, there seems to be a situation with the reservation." Karen's expression turned triumphant. "I knew it." "What situation?" Marcus demanded. Rodriguez glanced at Richard before continuing. "The reservation for Suite 1542 is under the name Reynolds, but..." "But what?" Marcus pressed. "But the system shows it's a corporate reservation under Reynolds Tech." Karen smirked. So they're not even the actual guests. They probably work for this Reynolds tech company and are using the corporate suite without authorization. Marcus took a deep breath, trying to maintain his composure. I am Marcus Reynolds. My brother is Darius Reynolds, the CEO of Reynolds Tech. This is my family, and we are staying in that suite with his permission. Karen scoffed. Right, and I'm best friends with Oprah. As the confrontation continued, a sleek yacht approached the resort's private dock. Staff members hurried to secure the vessel as a man in his early 40s stepped onto the pier. Darius Reynolds wore casual designer clothes that somehow looked both effortless and expensive. He was accompanied by 2 assistants who carried tablets and seemed to be briefing him as they walked. Darius had planned to surprise his brother's family with his arrival. After missing the first day of their vacation due to business in New York, he was looking forward to spending quality time with his niece and nephew. As he entered the resort, the manager at the reception desk recognized him immediately. Mr. Reynolds, we weren't expecting you today, sir. Darius smiled. I wanted to surprise my brother and his family. They're staying in the corporate suite. Of course, sir. They should be at the VIP pool area right now. Perfect, Darius said, heading toward the elevator. I'll head up there. Meanwhile, at the pool, the situation had deteriorated further. Karen was becoming increasingly agitated, convinced she had caught imposters. This is exactly what I was talking about, she said loudly. They're probably not even related to this Reynolds person. They're just using his name to get special treatment. Ma'am, please lower your voice, Richard requested, looking increasingly uncomfortable. I will not, Karen declared. I want them removed from this area immediately. They're clearly lying about who they are. Marcus had had enough. My brother owns Reynolds Tech. He arranged this vacation for us as a gift for my promotion. I don't need to prove anything to you. A likely story, Karen sneered. If your brother is really the CEO of some big tech company, why are you staying in his suite instead of your own? Couldn't afford it? Aisha stepped forward, her patience gone. You need to stop. Now, you're ruining our family vacation because you can't accept that we belong here. You don't belong here, Karen said, the words slipping out before she could stop them. A collective gasp went through the gathered crowd. Jada's phone captured it all. And there it is, Marcus said quietly. The real issue. Richard looked horrified. Ms. Whitmore, that's completely inappropriate. I didn't mean it like that, Karen backpedaled. I meant they don't belong here because they're not authorized guests. Then what did you mean exactly? The new voice came from behind them. Everyone turned to see Darius Reynolds standing there, his expression calm but his eyes hard as steel. The atmosphere around the pool shifted instantly. Richard, the general manager, recognized Darius immediately, his face paling. Mr. Reynolds, we weren't expecting you at the pool today. Darius didn't acknowledge him, his focus entirely on the scene before him. I asked a question, he said, his voice quiet but carrying across the now silent pool area. What exactly did you mean when you said my family doesn't belong here? Karen stared at him, her mouth opening and closing without sound. The resemblance between Darius and Marcus was clear now that they stood near each other. The same strong jawline, the same intelligent eyes. Uncle D, Jada broke the tension, running to Darius and throwing her arms around him. Darius hugged his niece, his expression softening momentarily before hardening again as he looked back at Karen and the resort staff. Would someone like to explain why my brother and his family are being harassed at my resort? Richard stepped forward, sweat beading on his forehead. Your resort, sir? Yes, my resort, Darius confirmed. Reynolds Tech acquired Ocean View Resorts last month. The paperwork was finalized last week. I'm surprised the memo hasn't reached all staff yet. The revelation sent shockwaves through the gathered crowd. Karen's face drained of all color. Now, Darius continued, I'll ask again, why is my family being treated this way? Marcus put his hand on his brother's shoulder. This woman, he nodded toward Karen, decided we didn't belong in the VIP section. She called security on us, insisted our room keys be verified, and when that wasn't enough, demanded they check the reservation in the system. Darius's gaze shifted to Karen, who seemed to shrink under his scrutiny. There was a misunderstanding, she stammered. I was just concerned about security. Security, Darius repeated flatly. And what about my family? What made you concerned about security, Miss Whitmore? She supplied weakly. Karen Whitmore. Ms. Whitmore, what exactly triggered your concern? Karen looked around desperately, as if searching for an ally, but found none. They didn't seem like the usual guests in this section. And what do the usual guests look like, Miss Whitmore? The question hung in the air, damning in its simplicity. Karen had no answer that wouldn't incriminate her further. Darius turned to Richard. As the general manager, you allowed this to happen? Richard looked like he wanted the ground to swallow him whole. Sir, we were just following protocol for a guest complaint. Protocol? Darius interrupted. Is it protocol to humiliate paying guests based on another guest's suspicions? Is it protocol to ask them to leave the pool area to verify their reservation when they've already shown valid key cards? No, sir, Richard admitted. We should have handled this differently. Darius nodded. Yes, you should have. He turned to Rodriguez and Thomas. And you two went along with this? Neither man could meet his eyes. Jada stepped forward, her phone still recording. I got it all, Uncle D. Everything she said, everything they did. Darius looked at the phone, then at his niece. Good job, Jada. He turned back to the resort staff. I think we need to have a serious conversation about how this resort operates. Karen Whitmore stood frozen, her world collapsing around her. Not only had she wrongly accused a family, but that family turned out to be related to the resort's owner. Her stomach churned as she realized the magnitude of her mistake. Mr. Reynolds, she began, her voice shaking, I want to apologize for the misunderstanding. Darius held up his hand, stopping her mid-sentence. Ms. Whitmore, I'm not interested in your apology right now. What I am interested in is addressing the culture that made you feel entitled to question my family's presence here. He turned to Richard. Call an emergency staff meeting. All department heads, all frontline staff. 1 hour. Richard nodded quickly. Yes, sir, right away. And Miss Whitmore, Darius continued, I believe it's time for you to check out. Karen's face flushed. Check out? But I'm paid through the weekend. You'll receive a full refund, Darius interrupted. But your stay at Ocean View is over. You can't do that, Karen protested weakly. Actually, I can, and I am. Darius's voice was calm but left no room for argument. Rodriguez, please escort Miss Whitmore to her room and then to the front desk to process her checkout. Rodriguez nodded, finally finding his voice. Yes, sir, Miss Whitmore, if you'll come with me. Karen looked around desperately, but the other guests avoided her gaze. Some were openly recording the scene on their phones. Her humiliation was complete and public. This isn't fair, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. What isn't fair, Darius replied, is my family being harassed while trying to enjoy their vacation. What isn't fair is the assumption that they don't belong here based solely on how they look. Karen had no response. With as much dignity as she could muster, she gathered her things and followed Rodriguez away from the pool area, the eyes of every guest following her retreat. Once she was gone, Darius turned to the remaining staff. Thomas, I want you to personally ensure that my family has everything they need for the remainder of their stay. And I mean everything. Yes, sir, Thomas replied, looking relieved to have a chance at redemption. Darius then addressed the onlookers. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the disruption to your day. As a token of our regret, all food and beverages at the resort will be complimentary for the remainder of the day. This announcement was met with murmurs of approval, and slowly, the crowd began to disperse. Darius finally turned to his family. I'm sorry you had to experience that. Marcus shook his head. Not your fault, bro. Unfortunately, it's nothing new. Maybe not, Darius agreed. But it stops here, at least at my resort. Jada held up her phone. Uncle D, this video is already getting shares. People are tagging the resort. Darius nodded. Good. Let people see what happened here today. Let them see the consequences too. As they spoke, Karen was being escorted through the lobby, her luggage hastily packed, her face burning with shame. Outside, several guests who had witnessed the pool incident were already sharing the video, adding their own commentary. By the time Karen's taxi pulled away from the resort, her name was beginning to trend online. Karen Whitmore sat rigidly in the back of the taxi, her phone buzzing constantly with notifications. The video had exploded online, with millions of views in just a few hours. Hashtags like Karen at Ocean View and resort racism were trending. She scrolled through her social media with trembling fingers, watching her reputation crumble in real time. Friends and colleagues were distancing themselves publicly. Her real estate brokerage had already released a statement saying they were investigating the incident, and her daughter had sent a text that simply read, "Mom, how could you?" The taxi driver glanced at her in the rearview mirror. Bad day? Karen couldn't even respond. Bad didn't begin to cover it. Meanwhile, back at the resort, Darius Reynolds stood before the assembled staff in the main conference room. Every employee, from housekeeping to management, was present. "What happened today is unacceptable," Darius began, his voice firm but measured. "Not just because it was my family involved, but because it should never happen to any guest." Richard, the general manager, stood to the side, his future clearly hanging in the balance. "Effective immediately," Darius continued, "Ocean View Resort will be closed for 3 days." Gasps and murmurs spread through the room. "All current guests will be offered accommodation at our sister properties, with transportation provided. All staff will undergo mandatory anti-bias training. And when we reopen, we will do so with a clear understanding that discrimination of any kind will not be tolerated." He looked around the room, making eye contact with as many staff members as possible. This isn't just about public relations. This is about who we are as a company and as a community. I bought this resort because it's one of the finest properties in Miami, but no amount of luxury matters if we can't treat all our guests with dignity and respect. After the meeting, Darius rejoined his family by the pool, which was now much quieter as news of the temporary closure spread. "Was that really necessary?" Marcus asked as Darius sat down. "Closing the whole resort?" Darius nodded. "It sends a message, not just to the staff, but to the industry. Besides," he smiled, "we'll have the place to ourselves for the next few hours before the transfers begin." Aisha looked at her brother-in-law with newfound respect. "You're using your power for good. I like it." "Speaking of power," Jada said, looking up from her phone, "you guys need to see this." She held up her screen, showing a news website with the headline, "Tech Billionaire Shuts Down Luxury Resort After Racial Profiling Incident Involving His Family." "That was fast," Marcus commented. "It's going viral," Jada confirmed. "People are calling Uncle D a hero for taking a stand." Darius shook his head. "I'm not the hero here. You guys are, for handling that situation with such dignity." "She's learning a hard lesson," Marcus finally said, "about treating people with respect." Jada nodded thoughtfully. "Good, she wasn't very nice." Darius laughed, ruffling his niece's hair. Out of the mouths of babes. As the Reynolds family enjoyed their now private pool, Karen Whitmore checked into a much less prestigious hotel, her phone continuing to blow up with notifications. Her carefully constructed life was unraveling, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. 1 week later, Karen Whitmore sat in her living room in Connecticut, the blinds drawn against the outside world. The fallout from the incident had been swift and merciless. Her real estate brokerage had parted ways with her, citing their commitment to diversity and inclusion. Several clients had publicly announced they would no longer work with her. Even her country club membership was under review. Her phone rang, her daughter, Emily, calling for the first time since the video went viral. Karen answered with a shaky hand. "Emily? Mom?" Her daughter's voice was cool, distant. "I saw your statement." Karen had finally released a public apology 3 days after the incident, but by then, the damage was done. The apology had been picked apart online, criticized as too little, too late. "I meant every word," Karen said quietly. "Did you?" Emily challenged. "Because from where I'm sitting, you're only sorry you got caught." Karen closed her eyes, the truth of her daughter's words hitting hard. I don't know what to say." That's the problem, Mom. You never do. You never stop to think about how your actions affect others. The conversation ended shortly after, with no resolution, no forgiveness. Karen sat in silence, confronting the person she had become, someone her own daughter couldn't respect. Meanwhile, at Reynolds Tech headquarters in Silicon Valley, Darius sat in a meeting with his PR team and diversity consultants. The Ocean View incident had transformed from a personal affront to a corporate mission. The new training program has been implemented at all our properties, his head of hospitality reported. And the response has been overwhelmingly positive, Darius nodded. And the scholarship fund? Launched yesterday, his chief of staff confirmed. The Reynolds Hospitality Scholarship will provide full tuition for minority students pursuing careers in hotel management. Good, Darius said. This isn't just about one incident or one resort. It's about changing the industry. After the meeting, Darius called his brother. How's my favorite architect? He asked when Marcus answered. Marcus laughed. Busy. That resort redesign you asked for is taking all my time. Following the incident, Darius had commissioned Marcus's firm to redesign the lobby of Ocean View Resort, creating a space that would celebrate diversity and inclusion through art and architecture. The kids still talking about their famous uncle? Darius asked. Jada's school project on using privilege for change got an A+, Marcus reported. She cited you as her primary example. Tell her I'm honored, Darius said. And how are you and Aisha doing with all this attention? Marcus was quiet for a moment. It's strange. That day at the pool, it wasn't the first time something like that has happened to us. But it was the first time there were real consequences for the person who did it. Too many people get away with that behavior, Darius agreed. The video hit 10 million views yesterday, Marcus added. Jada's been tracking it. She says it started conversations in her school about racism and accountability. That's the silver lining, Darius said. If enough people see it, maybe the next Karen will think twice. As they talked, Karen Whitmore was packing up her office, her career in shambles. Her phone buzzed with a news alert. Reynolds Tech launches anti-bias initiative across hospitality holdings. She stared at the screen, finally understanding the true cost of her actions. It wasn't just her reputation or her job. It was the realization that she had been on the wrong side of history, the wrong side of humanity. The article included a quote from Darius Reynolds. What happened at Ocean View was a symptom of a larger problem. We're committed to being part of the solution. Karen set down her phone and looked at the empty boxes surrounding her. She had a long way to go to rebuild her life, but perhaps an even longer way to rebuild herself.